Tonight on Unity News. A season of miracles continues.
Apparently was just floored. So I can't believe this. This is amazing.
Clearly showed bloodied flesh and had somehow grown larger than the original host. The experts, without knowing where the sample came from, issued their results that it was human flesh and blood.
Father, how can that happen?
That's a great question.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Next on Unity News.
Hello, I'm Danny Ellis.
I'm Claire Garoot.
I'm Father Stephen Elser.
And the Season of Miracles June episode starts now. Welcome back. We got a busy show tonight, and a lot of news has been happening since our last episode. We had Corpus Christi last weekend.
Yes.
Claire, how was that?
It was great. It was a wonderful turnout. Something new this year that we tried were different colors for different groups that we have in the church. The women's group, the Young Mothers women's group here at St. Paul, we wore a pink. I think what was it? Who was it that wore the red?
Yeah, I think the confirmation students.
The confirmation students wore the red. There was blue, and there was and it was great. You could definitely tell who was active in the church, and it was nice. Right. So
you know what the Latin phrase for the body of Christ is? Corpus Christi.
Of course it is.
Sorry, the trivia.
No,
that's just a great thing that we're doing with, the revival, the Eucharistic revival that the diocese is pushing, and the focus on the body of Christ, because that's really our central theme, the Eucharist. And that's a great thing to be doing, and going out in the community and embracing the community and showing people that, hey, this is Jesus, and which kind of is going to be our theme on our show in a little bit. Another thing that we had going on is, Father, we had your 5-year ordination celebration.
Yes, that's right.
4 years as our pastor.
4 years, yes. Back on, I think it was June 13th was the 4-year mark. I got here June 13th of 2019.
Right.
So we're now a little over 4 years.
Right.
Going into year number 5.
Right. So you... I guess you're enjoying it.
I am, yes. I'm enjoying it. It's been a good assignment. 3 parishes.
Right. We're so blessed to have you. Fortunate.
I feel very blessed to be here. So
yeah.
we're ready for another half.
I thought you were going to say another pastor.
No.
Ready for another 5. Okay, good.
There we go.
10, whatever the bishop wants to leave you here.
Good job. Good job. So, but we also had the Parish Picnic tonight. Turnout was great. Here's a little footage from that on the Parish Picnic. Good stuff. Good fellowship going on at St. Paul's. Good stuff. Going back to Father's anniversary special, did you see the Father Stephen Elser
Yes.
by Kathy Bergman and
Kathy
David
and
Priest?
David.
Did you know they gave us a plug on the song?
No.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Did they?
They mentioned you. They mentioned me. They mentioned Angie. They mentioned Father. But
Yeah.
but all I knew, I knew something may happen because Angie says, "Don't leave during the ode."
Okay.
So she'd be up here. I said, "Okay." I didn't know what was going to happen. But anyway, viewers, take a look.
Unity News is a fantastic story. Danny, Angie, Claire, and Father give the glory to the Lord who from above. Bless them all with faith and love.
Miracle month, that is. Right here and now.
Father's mother calls him son. He radiates the light of Christ to everyone. We are so blessed to have him at St. Paul. Happy 5th anniversary from us all.
Glasses time. The light is so bright.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Beverly Hillbillies, Andy Griffith. If you're from the South, hey, you know what we're talking about.
Right.
You can see that stuff.
They got me good.
Were you aware that was going to?
I was
happen.
not aware of a lot of things. I was not
That's
aware
me every day.
Yeah, I was not aware of David and Kathy doing that. I was not aware of Matt Fair's little. Was it a roast? No, it wasn't a roast. It was a tribute.
A tribute.
Yeah, it was
A
more of a
tribute.
tribute. But, it was a good evening. You know, I had a priest that actually was my spiritual director in the seminary who always told us never celebrate your anniversary. You know, you can celebrate 25 years and 50 years, but you never celebrate your anniversary.
Really?
You know, I kind of was reflecting on that. I was like, well, is it bad that I'm like having all these parties? But then I thought, well, it's not me that's hosting them or
You're not
anything,
throwing
right?
it.
I'm not throwing it. And then maybe what he meant is like, you don't need to like throw your own anniversary party. You know, you kind of misses the point of priesthood if you're kind of throwing yourself a party, right? You're there for the people and whatnot. So I felt kind of better after kind of thinking about it a little bit. You know, these wonderful parishioners of ours, both here and at St. John's, are, you know, the ones kind of celebrating not just me, but the priesthood, you know. So
I think he's a young priest and we're just so excited to have him. I mean, even if we're 5 years in, but, you know, we're just thankful that you're here and doing all you do for all three parishes. So it's definitely, I think it was, you know, you have to, I would think it's not, you didn't throw the party for yourself. We were like, yay, Father Elser, you did it, you
That's
know?
right.
So
You
we're
Come to
just,
the party. I'm having a party.
If you would come to the party,
Mhm. Well,
it's
and
going to be for you.
as I mentioned in my Holy Thursday homily, you know, they always told us in the seminary that 5 years is a kind of a big number in the sense that a lot of guys will leave priesthood after the first 5 years.
Okay.
And, you know, I think even within that first decade, there's a good percentage that just, you know, throw their hands up and say, I can't do this anymore. And they'll be done, you know? And so that 5 year mark has always been on my mind. Like, I need to make it to the 5 year mark. I don't want to be one of the ones statistics, right? That leave before reaching the 5 year mark. So that's partially why I, you know, was very excited to reach 5 years. It's like I made that milestone.
it's like 7 for marriages,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I'm just
Just
excited
7?
this year.
Wow.
We'll make it 7. Yeah. If you make it 7 years in marriage, they say that you can make it the rest of your life.
Go, there you go.
There you go.
This year's our 7.
Well, you made it.
Oh, we haven't yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
This year is your 7th.
Yeah, July.
July.
That's
July.
fine.
That's our next episode. You'll be there. We'll
Check back
bring
with
it
me
up.
again, Danny.
Yeah, how much I'll check back. So, Father, your brother was with you.
Did she enjoy
Mom and
it?
sister were here.
Yeah.
They
Your
really
other sister
enjoyed
too.
it. Yeah. So it was great.
And your mother was, I did not go to the St. John's, but was she a Eucharistic minister there?
She was,
Okay.
yes. She
I
was
saw pictures. So.
Eucharistic minister at that anniversary mass.
Yep.
So it was really nice
Great.
having her up there.
Good.
You think we never get your mom on the show?
Maybe. I mean, I'm trying to drag her up here a few more times. You know,
I'd love to do that.
So it's been a while. It had been a while since she'd been here. You know, coming up for our anniversary. So I think a lot of parishioners mentioned, you know, to her personally, got to come up and visit us more. We'd love to have you around. You know, so maybe Get her ready.
Maybe she will.
Maybe she will.
Maybe
You
she
never know.
will. Well, our season of miracles continues, and this is the June episode. And, you know, it's amazing. Every time we get ready to do a show, it's like national news is covering something that's going on. I mean, it started when we started our season of miracles. We had the Asbury revival going on, and people, young people from all over the country were just going to the Asbury University in Kentucky. And then that revival spread on. And then we had the miracle, the New Vatican's investigating with the host appearing.
The Eucharistic Miracles.
And that was in Hartford,
Connecticut.
Hartford, Connecticut. That's still being investigated. Well, lo and behold, we're getting ready to do our June episode, and here comes a miracle, potentially a miracle. Something's unexplainable that's happened just a few hours away near Kansas City, Gower, Missouri.
That's right.
with the incorruptible. And viewers, in case you're not sure what we're discussing, take a look.
It's great to be reminded that it can happen in our lifetime.
She's a saint already. I already have her canonized. Drove in a 3-hour drive and walked straight into Mass.
Hundreds of Catholic faithfuls are making the pilgrimage to Gower, Missouri. They want to witness what they describe as a miracle at the Benedictine monastery. The focus is a body revealed to have no signs of decay 4 years now after burial. In the words of the sisters, it's incorrupt, and that's a special word to Catholics because it signals a possible path to sainthood. Fox 4's Jacob Kittelstad makes the trip alongside an excited crowd.
The person at the center of this is Sister Wilhemina Lancaster, described as the African-American foundress of the group here. That's the Benedictine Sisters of Mary, Queen of the Apostles. Now, 4 years ago when she died, she was buried here, and she wasn't embalmed. So when she was exhumed as a part of a ceremony, the sisters expected to find mostly bones inside of her cracked wooden coffin. But instead what they found was her looking mostly the same as when she went in. The license plates in the drive-up show how far people are driving. Arkansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania. When did you hear about the body being incorrupt?
2 days ago. And then I got with my friend and we're like, okay, let's make this happen.
Can you explain to me the significance of the body being uncorrupted?
Well, that's just a sign that she was a very, very holy woman, and the Lord blessed her in her life and at death because she was faithful to her vocation.
Even her habit, made of cheap material, looks good to the sisters, who told the Catholic news agency all they did was wash away a thin layer of mold. Families say it's worth witnessing. And how many kids did you load up to bring?
Let's see, I brought 4 of mine and she brought 6 of hers. We had 10.
Did you have to explain to them, okay, typically a body over time gets smaller?
The younger ones, they didn't really ask those kind of particulars, but the older ones, yes. We kind of Googled the decay process because, you know, we're not familiar with exactly how long things take.
I was really excited, and then when we got here, I saw like her laying there, and I was very, very like in awe.
Fox 4. Well, God bless you.
And there's clear consensus among visitors. Do you feel like this is a miracle?
Yes, we need it at this time. It's such a bad time. We need this ray of heaven. We need this badly.
The sisters here say they've been overwhelmed with the amount of interest in this situation, and they're not doing interviews at this point, but according to their fact sheet, they say long-term their plan is to encase Sister Wilhemina in glass for more people to view her. Jacob Kittelstad, Fox 4, working for you.
That, besides, it's not natural.
Well,
you know?
I think that's why it's a big deal. You know, it is a miracle, and it's kind of the evidence that this person was pretty holy if their body hasn't decayed, you know. It kind of makes me think of the Blessed Virgin Mary being assumed body and soul into heaven. It kind of shows forth how important the body really is, you know. We're bodies. I better stop talking.
Save all that for
we're back, and we were having a conversation as you were watching that, and Father, you were talking about, I'd asked you, the incorruptibles, and why is that significant? Besides it's not normal. I mean, a body does decay.
Right. It's not normal because, yes, bodies do decay. And, this particular sister, I believe her name is Sister Wilhemina Lancaster, she wasn't even embalmed, right? And so 4 years later, and her body has shown no signs of decay. And it really kind of is a testament to her holiness, right? And to the fact that her body was very sacred, so it doesn't go through that process of deterioration. It makes me think of, like, our Catholic understanding of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? We believe that she was assumed body and soul into heaven because her body is so precious. It was incorruptible as well. And all of our bodies are very important. We as human persons, I think we may have talked about this maybe when Dr. Philip was on, but we're soul-body composites, right? The human person is made of both body and soul. And so there's a very important aspect of who we are as persons, the fact that we have a body, and our body is sacred, right? And so the incorruptible saints, of course, Sister Wilhelmina is not a saint yet. That will hopefully come in time. But saints that are incorruptible, I know there's some in Europe, for example, that their bodies are on display. And it's not that, it's kind of anything creepy or anything. We've got this body up here, but it's rather a kind of testament to their holiness of life, the fact that their bodies are still intact, even after some of them hundreds of years of, having been passed away. So, there's this idea of being incorruptible. It's just, it is a miracle, right? And that's kind of
a miracle.
We're talking about in this season of miracles. So those are my thoughts.
I think they opened the church up, and everyone was able to come in and pray and touch her, and it was watched quite a few different little news stories on it. It was very fascinating.
I believe, like the Connecticut miracle that's being investigated, I think they've got to go through the same kind of investigation,
which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
So that's an important part of kind of miracles in the church, right?
Right.
Kind of making sure things can't be explained by science.
That's exactly right.
People from all over, and hey, if it helps bring people closer to Jesus and helps improve their relationship, I'm all for it.
Right,
because we all need that kind of spiritual revival. Those things are important. And I think that's why the Lord kind of demonstrates. And especially, I think that's why we're having so many things going on now, is because the world has gotten so dark. I mean, we've got Ukraine, and I've mentioned that before, and that terrible war going on over there, and the division in the country that we're having, but with the elections coming up, and it's going to get worse, I'm afraid. But
and the lingering effects of COVID, right? I mean,
it's still lingering.
It's lingering. I mean, I think the country, the government declared it was over, I think last month in May, but I mean, we're still feeling the effects of it,
Yes.
Well, I think it's affected us mentally, personally. I mean, you still, I don't know, I don't really think nothing of it, but I got out of the habit of shaking hands if someone, and I've always been a type of person, shakes hands, pats someone on the back. You've just kind of gotten to where it's like, hello, how are you doing? And that was acceptable 2 years ago when that was going on. Right. Please stay, 15, 20 feet from me.
Right.
And, but it's just, I think it really affected the psychology of us. And Lord knows what it's done to the children that were going through that with schools,
right?
Going on. But that was the past. This is the present. And we're going to talk about some other things that were going on with your miracle. Father, I'd asked you, said, Father, could you please pick your favorite Eucharistic miracle? I mean, there's been so many that had been validated by the church. Church says this is a miracle. And you mentioned Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Buenos Aires. Viewers, take a look.
What does Pope Francis have to do with an incredible Eucharistic miracle? I'm Mark McDonald, and this is Eucharistic Stories. After a Mass in 1996 at a parish in Buenos Aires, Argentina, a woman approached the priest saying she found a consecrated host in the church. The priest, following proper procedures in such a case, placed the host into a glass of water so it would dissolve and put the host into the tabernacle. Days later, to the priest's amazement, the host appeared bloody and had a flesh-like appearance. Then Cardinal Bergoglio, now Pope Francis, who was the Archbishop of the area at the time, was notified and had the host photographed, which clearly showed bloodied flesh and had somehow grown larger than the original host. It was then placed back into the tabernacle and after several years with no sign of decay, Bergoglio officially opened an investigation. A sample of the blood was sent to scientists and doctors in the United States. The experts, without knowing where the sample came from, issued their results that it was human flesh and blood. Moreover, cardiologist and forensic pathologist Dr. Frederick Zujad said that it was a fragment of the heart muscle found in the wall of the left ventricle close to the valves. In addition, it was concluded that the heart had been under severe stress, as if the owner had been beaten severely about the chest. Perhaps most fascinating about the findings, Dr. Zujad said, the heart muscle is in an inflammatory condition and contains a large number of white blood cells. This indicates that the heart was alive at the time the sample was taken. It is my contention that the heart was alive, since white blood cells die outside a living organism. The Eucharist, the true body and blood of Jesus Christ.
Buenos Aires.
Yes.
That's the capital of Argentina.
That's right.
Father, what happened there?
Well, let me just kind of explain why, you had asked me to pick a Eucharistic miracle for us to talk about it. I wasn't really sure which one to pick. I was at St. Meinrad Seminary this couple months ago, this past March, and they have a very big bookstore, and all different kinds of books kind of caught my attention. One in particular I saw was this book, and it was it's by a doctor, a cardiologist, and it's a cardiologist who looks at these different Eucharistic miracles, right? And so I picked up the book and was reading. I've been reading it just here and there, off and on. And you had mentioned picking a Eucharistic miracle, and I was on the Buenos Aires chapter. And I thought, well, I haven't read the entire. It's the second chapter. I hadn't read the entire book yet, and so I thought, well, maybe I need to read a little more before I get back to Danny and pick out a Eucharistic miracle. But then I was at my home parish, Christ King of Little Rock. I think it was for my brother's baccalaureate mass. I graduated high school last month. And there at their parish, they had printed out these big posters about Eucharistic miracles. And the very first one I saw was Buenos Aires, just kind of out of nowhere. So I thought, all right, Lord, we'll talk about Buenos Aires.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
So, and the poster that they had, I've actually got a copy here, was from Blessed Carlo Acutis' website. So if you don't know who Blessed Carlo Acutis is, he was a teenager, right? He was, I believe he was, 15 or 16 years old when he passed away from leukemia. And one of his big things in his life, he was very devoted to the Eucharist, and he spent a lot of time documenting Eucharistic miracles, right? So his website is up to date. I mean, that's where I got this information. You can go to his website, and he has listed out all of these different Eucharistic miracles that had happened. And so Christ the King took this particular miracle, and I think they've done a few other ones. They blew it up to a poster size and kind of put it throughout the church. And so I'm a particular fan of Blessed Carlo Acutis as well, because he was born in 1991. Which was the same year I was born. So 1991 is representing, we've almost got a saint, right?
Year.
So it's a good year. So at any rate, Blessed Carlo Acutis will, of course, need one more miracle before he's declared, hopefully, Saint Carlo Acutis. So the Buenos Aires miracle, there are various things that had happened. Kind of the first thing that got the ball rolling was a host dropped onto the ground, right? And the normal protocol for this, and I've told our Eucharistic ministers who bring the Eucharist to the sick to do this, is if a host falls on the floor, or if we have a nursing home patient who may not really understand what they're receiving, they may spit it out or something, right? Kind of what to do with this Eucharist, this host that is either dirty on the floor or may has someone else's germs on it, right, or whatever.
Right.
The protocol is to take it and to put it in a glass or cup of water and let it dissolve. And the whole point of that is, if it dissolves into water and doesn't have what's called the accidents or the appearance of being a host anymore, then the substance or Jesus himself is no longer there, right? So the point is to kind of dissolve it to where it's no longer, you couldn't tell that it was a host anymore. Right.
It was unleavened bread.
Right.
It was no longer
There's a lot more technical jargon I could talk about. It's like I mentioned, substance accidents, accidents appear in substance if the substance is not there. If the accidents aren't there, the substance is not there, all that good stuff. I'm not going to talk about any of that.
The physics of it.
Yeah, right. As I mentioned in a homily a couple of weeks ago, I'm kind of a brainiac when it comes to those things. So anyway, so the basic protocol is to put it in a glass of water, right? And
which is what we do here.
We've had a few cases where, not miracles. Well, we do have miracles, but not like that.
Right.
Where a nursing home patient who's used to receiving communion may, for whatever reason that day, be confused or whatever and spit it out, right? And so the Eucharistic ministers are trained to put that kind of host, it's Jesus still, in a special cloth and to bring it back into the church and put it in that dissolved water or put it in water to dissolve. So that's what happened in the first Eucharistic miracle of Buenos Aires. The host dropped on the floor. I'm not sure the specifics, somebody noticed it or whatnot. And so the priest told the Eucharistic minister, go put that in water and place it in the tabernacle, right? And I believe after a couple days of waiting for it to dissolve, the host had turned into flesh, right? There had been blood as well that appeared from the host. And so kind of very much out of the ordinary. And believe that happened in like 1992, I believe, and there were other miracles that happened in that parish in Buenos Aires. I think in 94, there was some drops of blood that appeared in the paten, which is the golden containers that we use to distribute the Eucharist. And I think something similar happened in 1996 with the kind of dissolved water phenomenon. So we've got these miracles that had happened in Buenos Aires where the host that was being dissolved miraculously turned into flesh and blood, right? And of course, whenever we have miracles like this happen in the church and they're doing these investigations, the bishop is kind of the primary person who gives the permission or who calls for the investigation. So I believe it's the Archbishop in Hartford who called for the investigations for that Eucharistic miracle, right? Mm-hmm. So in the Buenos Aires situation, it was actually Cardinal, I don't know if it was Cardinal or Archbishop at the time, Jorge Bergoglio, which is, of course, Pope Francis, right? This was Pope Francis's original diocese when he became a bishop. And so ordered all the investigations and whatnot. And, the book that I was reading about the, cardiologists looking at these Eucharistic miracles, I'd be curious to have Dr. Philip back on the show to talk about this maybe, because it's a lot more technical than I was expecting. A lot of medical terminology. Mm-hmm. Luckily, they had footnotes, but I was flipping back and forth to the footnotes. All right, what does that mean? What does that mean? Right. I'm sure Dr. Philip knows all that medical.
Philip sounds like you're coming back.
Yeah, it would be nice to have him back. Maybe read that chapter.
We may do that.
But at any rate, they discovered in all of their investigations with the different doctors that, did the studies that the blood, the way that they were able to test it, they could tell that the blood came from the heart, right? And that the tissue that was there was
the part of
the
heart that gives life to the heart.
Right, exactly. Right. I believe it was the left ventricle.
Yeah. Dr. Philip is not here.
Which right, yeah. Dr. Philip can tell us what's right and wrong.
That's
here,
right.
And it's interesting. Another thing that they discovered in their investigations was there was the presence of white blood cells, which Dr. Philip again can correct us if we're wrong here, but white blood cells really only appear if it's sort of right after a person has died, or it needs to be within, I think it was like 15 minutes of someone living in order for white blood cells to appear. I guess they die off pretty soon. But those white blood cells were present as if it were, as if it were living, right? As if the host itself was living. And another testing that they did, they were able to tell that for whatever reason, I don't know the technical jargon, but doing their testing, they found out that this specimen, the blood, they could tell was suffered a lot, right? Had severe pain or trauma, specifically to the chest and whatnot. And so, and in Blessed Carlo Acutis's article here, I don't know if he did all this or if someone else has kind of carried on the tradition. It was reported that, the person, one of the investigators who was looking at this was sort of a blind investigator, right? They didn't tell him.
They didn't tell him. Send it to the United States.
Right. They didn't say where the sample came from. In fact, this particular doctor was talking as if it were a patient, right? He says, your patient that you're giving me the sample is, suffering from this and this and this. Where did you get the sample or whatnot? And it was only after he had done all of that that they told him, well, this is not maybe a normal patient, right? This is from this host. It's from this, from the Eucharist itself. And apparently he was just floored and said, I can't believe this. This is amazing.
Scientifically unexplainable.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that parish still exists in Buenos Aires. I think people do go to it, and then you can, I think the actual fragments are maybe on display and whatnot. At least they show that in one of the pictures here of people venerating this, the Eucharist, right? And it's just, gosh, what a reminder for us. I mean, during the month of June, the Friday after Corpus Christi is always the feast day of the Sacred Heart, right? And how wonderful to think of how the heart of Jesus is so tied to the Eucharist, right? I mean, you may not think of that, right? I mean, at least it doesn't really come naturally. When I think of the Eucharist, I don't automatically think of the heart, but really, I mean, what a wonderful image to kind of think about how the heart of our church, the heart of, everything that we do is the Eucharist, right? And the heart of Jesus that loves us so much, is there present whenever we receive him. Right.
So white blood cells, of course, Dr. Phillips not here, but white blood cells cannot exist outside of a living body, but these white blood cells are present.
Right.
And they point to all of this that we're talking about, where it came from in the body and the trauma and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Father, how can that happen?
That's a great question. It's a miracle, right? I mean,
it is
as we've been talking about, the Lord makes himself known in various mysterious ways. Sometimes very explicitly like this. At other times, like me researching this, where I just kind of happened to see this poster after having thought about it. I mean, the Lord does reveal himself in a variety of ways, and that's kind of what we've been focusing on, from the maybe simple miracles like that to the really profound miracles like, the McDonough's or this, or, think of my mom whenever we started the season of miracles.
Yes, first episode.
So how can this happen? I think it happens because the Lord wanted it to happen. The Lord wanted to make his presence known. And how important it is for us to have our eyes of faith open,
Mm-hmm. Well,
otherwise we'll miss it.
It's also so I think so that good things can happen. Let's talking about Chase McDonough. You think, well, why did that happen? And so forth. But for the doctor at Arkansas Children's, when he was admitted, diagnosed him, and all this went on, and the doctor was an atheist. And after Father Woods had prayed over Chase and the healing began, a healing that was so dramatic and so quick that the blisters were disappearing, and his father, Andrew, was taking pictures. Now, wait a minute, I thought I saw that. That's disappeared. He would take pictures of that. And just to kind of confirm that there was something on his skin, blah, blah, blah. Everything's happening. They're bringing all the doctors in. And the main doctor said, this is scientifically impossible. And then he converts, resigns from his, it just didn't make sense to science, and then becomes a missionary.
Yeah.
Good came out of that.
Yeah.
And that's what's so good about, what God can do is that he can take a terrible tragedy or horrific thing and make good things come out.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's another reason that we're seeing, these things happening. so often. I mean, or does it just happen day by day? Maybe we don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it just happens, and maybe we, you know, God doesn't get the credit He deserves. Or Lord, you are still working these miracles. It's just not noticed as much as it should be.
As a kind of brief side note, I saw priests were just on retreat together at Subiaco for a week. This was a couple of weeks ago, the first full week of June, and saw Father Mark Wood there, and just wanted to say he sends his greetings. He remembers the two parishes, St. Paul's and St. John's, very fondly. You know, so it was good to catch up with him. I saw Father John Marconi there and Father Tom Marks. You know, some of our former pastors. And of course, we talked about things Pocahontas.
Which are not going to share with us.
Well, I just mentioned we talked, you know. So, not about what.
Oh, you
but,
had
you
these
know.
issues?
No,
They're still there.
I didn't say that.
What did you do about this? How did you handle that?
Well, look what they're doing
You
now.
know, they got Unity News going on. What in the world's that? Well, that's good that you had that. I saw all the pictures on Facebook with that. I thought it was really good. But
it was great to be together.
you were sitting in front of a piano and someone had a guitar.
Right.
I don't know, he's having fun.
Yeah, so it's just kind of happened ever since I've gone to the priest retreat. They've either put me in charge of music or have helped out with the music. This year I was in charge of picking all the songs. Okay. And, you know, it's the one, I mean, I'd say the one time of the year where I get to play for Mass. You know, I'm not really able to play for Mass because I'm doing Mass, you know. Yeah. One of the other priests said, you know, hey, we got some seminarians coming up that they'll be ordained soon and they can kind of give you a break and whatnot. And I said, well, I don't really want a break. You know, like this is my one time a year I get to play piano for Mass. So
that's pretty cool.
So yeah, it's
really cool.
I enjoy it. Yeah, and there's a few other musicians, you know, like there's a priest that play guitar, and got some priests that have beautiful voices too that cantored for us. So it was it was a great time.
Good. Glad you enjoyed yourself. You deserved it. You deserved a little.
Sorry to get us off track a little.
No,
bit
that's
from
fine.
the miracles.
That's fine. Well, you know, our season of miracles is run, and this is officially the last episode of this little series that we're running, the season of miracles. We're going to have another season of something come up late summer this fall, and we're just going to keep it amongst the team for right now. But unless Lord willing, I mean, He may want this to continue. There may be a big miracle that we've got to go live on and report that's happening here. But we're going to, but you know, we get a lot of response from our viewers. And if you have got a story that, you know, where the Lord has worked something really big in your life that could be called a miracle or anything, go ahead and continue sending those into Unity News because, you know, we still may bring people on the show. We're not going to turn someone away just our season of miracles is over. You can't come on the show.
We'd love to hear it anyway.
These are things, you know, our goal is to promote the kingdom of Christ, the kingdom of God, and the Lord is using Unity News to do that. We're getting the word out, and so we are hoping to continue this as long as it's needed. Join us again for our next episode. We will again be getting ready for our next little season that we're going to be talking about. Until then, God bless. Keep the faith, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.